There are some really effective and cool combat tricks in 007 First Light, but some of the best ones the game either doesn't actually teach you during the main story or doesn't teach you at all. Like, I didn't realize how overpowered oil barrels were for a long time. I thought maybe you needed to light them on fire or something, but no, just kick them to make them spill, and then if you lure enemies over the oil slick, most will just get instantly knocked out when they slip and hit the ground. So instead of a lengthy fist fight to knock them out, just get them to chase you over a little oil and they'll be done. I also thought it was pretty cool that they added the ability to hack grenades with the Q lens to disable them. You can shoot them as well, either on the ground or in the air, but shooting out of the air can be tough and they have a short timer once they hit the ground. So sometimes hacking to disable grenades is just faster and easier. Oh, and you can also shoot enemies just as they're about to throw a grenade to make them drop it on themselves. I also definitely recommend toggling on the flashbang dark effect setting at the very bottom of the graphics settings tab so you're not totally blinded when you do get hit by a grenade. There are also more melee combos and techniques than you might realize, and a few of them are definitely more effective than others. If you grab an enemy and either throw or shove them into any kind of electrically powered device, like a vending machine, server rack, or even small ones like lights, fans, and radios, they'll get electrocuted and knocked out very fast, similar to those oil slicks. To grab an enemy and throw them, with the default controls on controller, hold down R2 to grab, and then release it to throw while pushing the movement stick in whatever direction you want to throw them. For PC players on keyboard, that's the E key by default. You can also throw enemies over railings or off ledges, which is really fun and has the extra benefit of hiding the bodies. Other enemies will find their knocked out friends and start getting suspicious, so chucking them off a ledge can be the stealthier option. You can also throw enemies into each other, which is actually pretty effective when you're dealing with a group because it'll interrupt multiple enemies to stop them from attacking you. The game does actually teach you about some of these combos and mechanics through the advanced close combat training escalation mission in the Tac Sim. More on the Tac Sim in a minute, but there's a couple more really effective melee combos you should definitely be using, including my favorite that the game won't teach you at all. But first, a quick thanks to our sponsor. RF Online Next is a free-to-play cross-platform sci-fi MMORPG and the official successor to the 2006 classic Rising Force Online. Topping the App Store charts in Korea within just 18 hours of launch, it continues the franchise's legendary three-faction warfare, where mechs and magic collide as players battle over the mines to control resources. And resources mean power. You can choose to join the Velato Nation as a tech-focused mech pilot, Korra as a magic-wielding spiritual warrior, or Akreshia as a fully cybernetic soldier. Veterans will be happy to find that previously race-locked abilities are now part of a cross-nation system. So the war itself actually determines who controls what, and new flight-enabled biosuits bring a whole new layer of tactical flexibility. With 6 loadouts you can switch between mid-combat. Plus, you'll have over 100 mechs to choose from. Iconic content like the mining war is also back, now supporting up to 450 players in a single clash. RF Online Next is coming to PC through the Epic Game Store and Netmarble launcher, plus iOS and Android for mobile. The official Discord linked below is where the community is already coming together and where you'll find the latest updates and launch announcements. You can also check out more gameplay on the official website and pre-register there on the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store. Let me know, did you play the original and which faction will you be playing as? Okay, back to playing Spy. Now's a good time to mention I'm showing controls using the classic Sprint controller profile. This is exactly the same as the default controls, except Sprint gets switched from the R1/RB bumper to L3, so just clicking your left stick, which I think a lot of people will like better. So definitely try out the classic Sprint profile. If the controls still feel weird to you, then you might also want to try out the shooter profile, which puts Sprint on L3 just like the classic Sprint profile, but it also puts the melee attack on R1, or the Panther profile, which puts parry on R1 if you feel like you want that. I think those 3 are the most intuitive for most players of other action adventure and RPGs, but none of these presets felt quite right to me personally. So I did set up my own custom profile, which you can see all the mapping for here. My goal was to get Sprint on L3, the melee punch attack on R1, parry on L1, dodge on circle, that's B on an Xbox style controller, and crouch on square, which is X on an Xbox style controller. This makes the controls much closer to the games I play the most, and I think a lot of you will find that to be the case as well. But regardless of what control scheme you're using, one of the strongest melee combos is the simple grab rush. Instead of holding R2 briefly and releasing it like we did before for throwing enemies, just keep holding R2 and James will start running with them so you can slam them into walls or other obstacles, which does quite a bit more damage than regular punches. On keyboard, you just hold the E key to do this. You can also use this to steer an enemy into others or over to a ledge where you want to throw them off. You just need to turn your camera either with the right stick or the mouse really hard to steer effectively. But my favorite thing to do is to combine this grab rush with the charge, which the game teaches you is square plus R1 on controller or left shift plus left click on keyboard. So you grab an enemy with the R2 hold and run them into a wall. Then you immediately hit square and R1 to charge them, which interrupts them to stop them from retaliating. And then you just hold R2 again to grab rush them into the wall again. You can just keep cycling between those two attacks 2 or 3 times to take most enemies out quickly and safely. And the controls to do this are the same for all the controller schemes I mentioned. But even if you're not going to do this grab rush and charge cycling trick, getting enemies backed up against walls is just helpful in general because they'll get stunned and interrupted a little bit more when your attacks knock them back into a wall. But when you're not near a wall, one of the strongest melee combos you can do is the kick, which is triggered by hitting square for a normal punch and then immediately pressing and holding square again. If you're using my custom controls, that's R1 instead of square. And on mouse, it's just left click. It's also worth noting that the square plus R1 charge can actually interrupt red attacks from enemies if you do them early enough, and if you do it to an enemy holding a weapon, you'll knock the weapon out of their hands and James will snatch it out of the air, which is definitely a very slick move and useful when you're in a bind without a weapon or ammo. Another way you can do that is by sneaking up to an enemy on the other side of a crate or a similar low object and doing the prompted vault attack. That'll knock their weapon out of their hands as well. The game will also teach you that parrying a full chain of yellow attacks from an enemy will end with James grabbing them and throwing them away. But what it doesn't tell you is that if you hit square or whatever you're using for your melee attack button right at the end of the string of parries, James will grab them and knee them in the head instead of throwing them away, which does a solid amount of damage and is definitely more fun as far as I'm concerned. And if you grab an enemy with R2 and keep holding it to hang on to them, you can hit the melee button a few times and James will knee them repeatedly. Some of these combos we're talking about can be learned inside the Tactical Simulator, or Tac Sim, which you can unlock by talking with Selena over here by this yellow painted wall in Q Lab early on after you talk with Q the first time. The Tac Sim has extra training missions you can do to learn about more advanced combat mechanics. For example, in addition to some of the melee combos we already covered, you'll also learn that you can shoot weapons out of enemies' hands by shooting them in their hands, and you can also shoot them in the legs to make them stumble. So definitely worth checking out the Tac Sim. Plus, it has global leaderboards for your score and all the different challenges if you're into that sort of thing. You won't be able to access most of the Tac Sim content until you finish the main story, but this is also where you'll be able to unlock new outfits and cosmetic styles for your weapons and gadgets when you get that far. You do that by completing challenges to increase your clearance level and also get the Intel resource, which is the currency you spend on cosmetics and other unlocks, like the gadget upgrades to make your gadgets more efficient and effective. Also, just a quick note that the Intel resource count is shown with a decimal for the thousand separator, not a comma. So this number here is not 12.3 Intel, it's 12,300 Intel, so don't get confused by that. Something else that can be a little confusing with the Tac Sim is how you get back to it after the first time. Basically, you just access it through the pause menu, so go back to the game's main menu and select Tactical Simulation to get there. And then when you want to exit the Tac Sim, you need to open up the pause menu and go back to the main menu. But back out on missions, there's still a bunch more tricks I love to use, like the fact that throwable items like bottles and bricks and even empty weapons are actually really useful because they'll instantly stun a lot of enemies and let you do a finisher right away. Using 2 or 3 throwables in a row can be a good tactic to interrupt multiple enemies at once so you can easily take control of a fight and take them all out. You of course also want to be using the Q lens all the time to check for enemy locations through walls and floors and to find different objects you can hack or shoot to cause distractions or create cover for yourself through things like smoke screens. Scanning will also show you just how many things in this game are explosive, and there's a lot of them. Shooting things to cause an explosion or knock over some scaffolding to take out an enemy, or better yet multiple enemies at once, is definitely a lot of fun and very efficient, so definitely don't forget to check around for explosives. The Q lens will also reveal NPCs carrying items like keys and access ID cards that you can pickpocket if you distract them either by activating something nearby like a radio or vacuum cleaner, or just by nailing them in the the eyes with a laser pulse from the watch strap or a shot of the dart phone that will make them nauseous for a little while. That's particularly important for enemies with a dot floating over their head. These guys are watchers and they can't be bluffed through a direct interaction, but you will need to get past them sometimes. So saving up a laser or poison charge for them is definitely a good idea. You can also tell if an enemy is bluffable or not by scanning them with the Q lens and reading the information card that pops up. Keep in mind all gadgets either use electricity or chemicals, so you generally don't want to equip all gadgets that use only one or the other because then you'll often run out of the ability to use any of your gadgets. It's definitely best to have at least one of each type equipped so you have some flexibility with resource management during a mission. I personally think the most useful gadgets are the laser watch strap, the dart phone, and the missile pen. Beyond combat and stealth, the laser is also useful for exploration because it'll destroy locks on vents and doors so you can gain access to different areas. So it's a good idea to always try to have at least half an electric charge since that's how much the laser needs. But the missile pen in particular is super strong, and you should basically think of it as another full-blown weapon in your arsenal alongside all the guns. The missile pen can take out the more heavily armored enemies, specifically the ones with helmets, in just a single shot. With a regular weapon, you can do 1 or 2 shots to the helmet to remove it and then another headshot to take them out, but the missile pen just instantly deletes them. And don't forget you can use the Q lens during combat as well. It's often helpful to laser a few guys in the eyes or make a few of them sick for crowd control purposes. But bigger gunfights will definitely turn into, well, just gunfights. And one of the most important things to keep in mind is checking bodies for extra ammo. Each weapon has a unique ammo type, and the only way you get more of that ammo is by finding additional copies of the same weapon you have equipped. So once you clear a group of enemies, check to see which weapon is the most common one dropped and consider taking that one because you'll be able to take all the extra ammo from all the extra copies as well. It's pretty easy to run out of ammo if you don't do this, so being mindful of which weapons you're picking up is definitely important. I'm sure you've also noticed that James doesn't have a traditional health bar, but his health does actually regenerate pretty fast. So don't get too concerned about taking damage. Even if you're close to death, if you can gain some cover and disengage for a few moments, James will heal up pretty fast. There's also a few settings you might want to adjust to improve your gameplay experience. First off, when you start the game, it's going to ask you what difficulty you want to play on. Don't worry about this too much because you can change it. I'd just go for normal difficulty first, and then anytime you die, you'll have the opportunity to switch difficulties. Under the gameplay settings, you can flip on automatic agility, which will make traversal much smoother, allowing James to automatically climb and jump over gaps, which I personally like. The only downside is sometimes when you're walking near a railing or other low barrier like a desk, he'll auto vault over it when you didn't intend him to. So give it a try and see what you like better. In the graphics settings, I would definitely recommend trying film grain and chromatic aberration toggled off. Turning these off in basically any game will clean up the image a bit and give a slight performance boost in some cases. I'd also test to see if you prefer motion blur on or off. I always turn motion blur off because I think it looks bad and it can make me a little nauseous, but some people are the opposite and need motion blur on to avoid getting nauseous, so give off a try and see what you like better. I'll also give you a look at my customized controller sensitivity settings here in case you want to make some adjustments to make the controls and aiming feel a bit better. One thing I definitely liked better here was flipping the aim response curve to linear, so even if you don't adjust the other settings, give that a try. And this is also the page where you can change the sprint setting to press, hold, or toggle. Now, another game I've really been enjoying recently is Saros, and I've got a ton of great tips for that one in this video right here. But if Saros isn't for you, I'll also let YouTube pick a video to recommend to you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.